then he is one of the judges or one of the teachers. Oh my God, I got so scared, I can't tell you. But he obviously did not pay much attention to me. And then I'm called out to the board. It was Ukrainian language, the language. And by that time I spoke, yeah. And one of the teachers there calls me out, come out. So what are you going to tell us to me? I said, I don't know. Well, can you recite something? Can you tell me something? What did you read? Do you read sometimes? I said, yes, I read. So can you recite? I said, yes, I can recite. So what would you recite? I said, I recite Shevchenko. That was very good, you know. So all right, recite. So I started reciting in Ukrainian. Luckily, because I liked literature always and liked, things, and I read and I absorbed, I knew. I started reciting. He said, that's enough. That's fine. Very nice, very good. Go, sit down. And I got very good, very good. Because you must understand that the children who were there were mostly peasant children. No education whatsoever. So if she asks such a child to recite, and suddenly comes a child who says, yes, I recite Shevchenko. They looked up, because of the other children. Okay, here comes mathematics. That's completely, I was at a loss completely there. What am I going to? And the Mother Superior said to me like this, look, it doesn't matter. Even if you get 0, you get the worst result, but you'll have a piece of paper with your name on it. So I remembered that. I said, too bad. If I don't know, I don't know. No, it doesn't matter. So listen to this. All right, draw a circle on the board. Do a half the circle. Which is the larger half? And I stood there and looked at her and I said, there is no larger half. What do you mean there is no larger? No, half is half. And they were amazed. They were amazed. She said, very good, go and sit down. That was it.
So you could.
And I had, yes.
Marks.
And I had a I had a nice thing, very good in Ukrainian, very good in math, my name, that's it. That's amazing.
Yeah. You said that there was another Jewish girl in the orphanage.
Oh, there were a few of us.
Yeah, that was exactly my question, because I know that Sheptytsky has helped quite a lot of Jews, especially children.
Yes, 150.
Yes.
150 of us, yes. Not in that particular
time.
Mostly in monasteries. Mostly boys, which was very dangerous. But in monasteries all over, and in various convents. I was in one of them.
So at the time, you weren't really aware of the, let me put it that way, scale of his operation, so that there were so many Jews in different places.
No,
we had brother. You didn't know.
I had no idea. Even here, I knew about her.
Yes.
That's all. But I didn't know the others. I had no idea that there was one or two other Jewish girls. I had no idea. Later on, I learned, but I didn't know. No. We were about, I think, 3 or 4 there. She and another girl there in Israel. They landed afterwards in Israel. But I didn't know the others at all.
Now, the war for you ends in July 44.
Yes.
And But you did stay in Lvov for a bit.
Yeah, of course we had to. We had to, yeah.
Looking also for some traces of your father and brother. I
Of course,
presume.
yes, but there was nowhere to look really as such. But the same thing like anywhere else, people. Well, there were very, very few of us, about 80 people that survived around, from what I understood. So there were very few of us, and nobody knew, and we couldn't walk around, and we were non-Jews, my mother and I, so we couldn't walk around and ask, about.
Yes.
So it was very difficult,
When you
but
were
we were trying here and there, wherever we could, to try and establish something, but it was nothing.
did you have to change your name when you were in Lvov
Of
as
course,
well?
yes. And when we
So
were in Krakow,
yes,
also.
yes. So the war has ended, but the anti-Semitism was still so bad that you couldn't really exist under your.
Very bad, very bad,
Mm-hmm.
very bad. We couldn't. I mean, in Krakow, where we lived in Krakow, in somebody were, people were renting rooms out,
Yes.
so on to make a living. And the family we stayed in, you should have heard their conversations. They're saying about the bloody Jews and the thing. Żydzi to, Żydzi tamto. If they had known we were Jewish,
Yeah.
of course not. It was very bad. And in Lvov, of course, I remember when the Russians, there was a moment, there were about 2 days of the town being completely empty of the Germans, no Germans and no Russians. Russians on that side, and the free city empty. And then the Russian on a horse, the first Russian I ever saw was on a horse, coming. Suddenly you heard something like horse hooves, and you see from afar a Russian on a horse coming in. It was eerie. It was absolutely eerie because nobody dared to walk out. But there were no Germans. There were no Russians. Town was empty. And that officer on the horse, the Russian, came in, and he very slowly walked by, and then suddenly we heard a shot. And I didn't know what it was, and transpired a Jewish man who was hiding under some floorboards or something somewhere. When he saw the Russian, he ran out. Apparently, they were saying, I didn't see it, but he was kissing his boot, and the Ukrainian came out and shot him. Yeah, immediately on the spot.
Tell me about the journey to Krakow, because that must have been quite
Please have
hard.
a thing.
In July
was
45.
Yeah. Well, it was 7-day journey. It was quite fun for me. I quite enjoyed it because there were a lot of young people, not necessarily Jews, no, but youngsters. The train was full to capacity. It was terribly hot. I think it was August, not July. It was like now, terribly hot. So we youngsters were going up on the roof. We were going on the roof on the train. My mother was in a state. How can
You were behaving like a teenager.
No. But we youngsters, so we said that there was no space. There was no space to sit. There was no. It was terrible 7 days like that. And so this is how we went. We were on the roof, and we were going that way, and that was much better. And we had some fun there on the roof, youngsters. That's all. And we got to Krakow. was terribly sad. Coming to Krakow, terribly sad. We never went anywhere near the streets where we lived. Nowhere near. And as I said, my mother had to find some living quarter, which she found. I don't know how, whether people advertised or what, maybe that's how. And she started working, because she had to.
Sewing.
And sewing, yes, absolutely. And as she was so brilliant at it, so more and more people, by word of mouth, so she could make a living, more or less. And I was going to, we didn't have a school or anything like that, but the Jewish committee had something organized, kind of a classes, if you like. I still have here, we have no books, no school books, nothing. I was always the one to write very quick, very fast, very fast. So I wrote word by word what the teacher was. Yeah? And so I still have here, somewhere down there, the exercise books, full of it. And that was the book that went through the class for everybody. I wrote very quickly. And that's how it was. I should have told you a situation in Lvov before we went to Krakow. My mother had to work like everybody else in some Russian institution. They were, all sorts of institutions for this, for that, for the other, And she worked in Vojentorg or something, I forget even the name, but she was employed. She had to be employed. This was the thing, everybody had to work. And I used to love to go to the theater very much. So I ran always in the afternoons, and a matinee, not matinee, the theater. One evening my mother comes home, just Lili, listen to this. She always said, listen very carefully, because I was here, there, and everywhere, and she talked them. And listen very carefully. Tomorrow is the 1st of May. Don't dare to go to any theater or anywhere else. You must come home from school, and we have to go in the evening for the Prasnik, Whether you want to or whether we want to or not, we must go. Otherwise, I'll be without a job and who knows what. We must go, like everybody else. Okay. So the 1st of May came, and we went. We arrived where she was working, Vojentorg, I think it was called, something like that. It was an enormous place. And see, tables. This was like huge, such enormosities, covered with obviously sheets, because from one end of the room to another. A number of these rooms, like these huge rooms, like almost like I don't know, sport thing or something. And these things are covered, and everybody has some forks, knives, whatever, soup in front, and the glass filled with water in front of everybody, exactly the same. So we are seated. You can sit wherever you like. So my mother and I would sit down. Okay. So we're waiting. Nothing happens. They don't bring any food. They don't until everybody arrives, like it is. And then After a long, long while, the man at the top of the table, somewhere there, whoever he was, stands up, takes this glass, and says, "Long live Stalin," or something, or something to that effect. Maybe not exactly this, but cheers, cheers. Okay. Nobody bothers. He's standing. So he says, "Nobody stands up. Nobody wants to drink with me." Quiet. Nobody. That's a huge table. There must have been 30 people at least all around, So again, he says, "Well, cheers." Nobody gets up. So he says, "Well, how come nobody wants to drink with me?" So I get up and take that glass and say, "I'll drink with you." He said, "You will drink with me, you?" I said, "Yes." My mother, poor my mother, I can tell you, she holds on to me and says, "Don't sit down, sit down." I said, "No, nobody gets up. I'll drink, He said, "All right, cheers." I start drinking and I drink, and you can imagine what it was. And I had no idea.
Stakan of vodka.
I had no idea. But I look at him, he's drinking, so I was drinking. Whatever I'm drinking, I have no idea. And I drank the whole lot. It was really, ever since then, I can't look. But I had no idea, and nobody stopped me. Or maybe nobody knew either. It was water in the glass.
That was my first thought when you said that there were glasses
Sure,
of
because
water.
what else?
It's not water, it's vodka.
Who would have known? Who would have known? And he said, "You want to drink with me?" And the next thing, I always had a catarrh, something, my nose running always. I always had hankies with me, hankies. So here also, I wanted to wipe my nose. The hanky fell. So I look down and I see hankies all around me. Hankies, and I thought, I can't get it. All around. But suddenly I touch, and I come upon a boot office. And I go on it, and there is an officer standing next to me, and he asks me for a dance. I said, "I can't dance, I can't." "Yes, you can dance, And he picks me up and goes on the floor with me, and I know nothing more.
Was that the first time ever you've had alcohol?
Of course, I never.
That's some opening.
It really was unbelievable, I didn't want to stop because he was drinking, so I was drinking, I thought, but I knew I was drinking something terrible.
Yeah.
I had no idea what. This officer was dancing with me, but I wasn't me. He was carrying me. I don't know how he danced with me. The next thing I knew was waking up on a bench, my poor mother sitting next to me, and it's the morning, and everything smells terrible, and it's messy. Nobody there but she and I sleeping. Can you imagine?
Well, gutsy you were definitely.
Mm-hmm.
You were definitely
Yeah,
gutsy.
absolutely, because to me this wasn't normal. Why doesn't anybody drink with him? Why not? I couldn't understand that simply. Not that I wanted, yes, I wanted, but why can't anybody? He said, "Does nobody want to drink with me?" So I said, "I'll drink with you." That was something, my poor mother, honestly, when I think of, gosh, she sat with me and I was sleeping, and this horrible smell, of alcohol and God knows what. And
Yeah.
you can imagine, it's dreadful, dreadful. Ugh. Oh my God.
That reminds me of that. I went to Moscow, but via Ukraine. So I went to Lviv and Kiev in like about 20, I think 2 years ago. I was still at uni in Warsaw, so that was the time when system has just changed. It was a few years later.
Why did you go to Moscow?
I was studying art history, and I had a very good friend, or good friends in Moscow. She's quite a well-known photographer now, but she studied art history and photography in Poland. And just
Russian.
Yes, she's Russian. She's Jewish Russian, and her husband is not Jewish Russian, but comes from a very bohemian family. So I remember when we went to Moscow, we were hanging out with those actors and theater directors, and it was very
nice.
very 1920s. That's how I remember
nice.
it. Yes.
Lovely.
But what I remember from this trip is exactly what you were describing, the stakans of vodka. We were taking a train, a night train from, I think it was from Kiev to Moscow, and we were poor students, so we at that time they had different tickets for their people and for foreigners, and the tickets for Inostrancy was like 4 times as much as for the locals. So we bought the tickets from for the locals because we couldn't afford the other ones. And they knew immediately. I spoke pretty good Russian at the time, but they knew immediately that we weren't locals. But somehow they let us on the train, and so we get on this train about 1 a.m. I think, and it's the sleepers train, of course, because there are no different trains there. So the bottom bunks are taken, so we climbed onto the top ones. And all I remember is the ceiling being like this
terrible. It's so
cockroaches running on the ceiling. So I slept. Yes, I slept in my sleeping bag. And then I wake up in the morning.
Oh my God!
And I look down, and there are those 2 ladies, and I don't know if they were Russian or they were Ukrainian either. And they were having breakfast, and they were eating whatever they were eating, something like fatty bacon or something, smoked. Pickling maybe, whatever it was, pickling, and stakans of vodka first thing in the morning. And I remember being absolutely like, how can they do that? They did.
Well, maybe it's a question of habit. They start.
I think it is.
I mean, as a baby, maybe their mothers feed them vodka or something.
I also remember, and that's the same trip in Moscow.
I can't understand how anybody, because it's really no taste in it. It's not tasty. It's not nice. All right, when sometimes I have to go somewhere, when we're having a herring, so everybody has a bit of vodka. Oh, I said, oh my God, but I don't want to say anything. I said, then I have this.
Yeah.
And I immediately see myself then.
Oh, but that's probably why.
It's like I immediately, when I eat potato pancakes, I see myself and I hear him say, but I must reward her. I must reward her.
Yeah.
It's, it sticks to one.
Yeah.
Oh, really awful. But
I think
that was fun only, not for my mother. I mean, when she has to sit with, it was awful. Poor thing. I think about it. Oh.
But then again, this is what young people do.
Yeah, I know, but of course, listen, she always had that with me, because I tell you, she was completely character-wise, total opposite to me, from that point of view. I was very lively and very, and she always, oh my God, embarrassed that I would go and sing somewhere. We'd go to Switzerland, and the band would say, Polish band was there. Oh, come on, let's sing. And I knew the whole repertoire of pre-war songs, and so sang with them. She was embarrassed. Oh my God, don't. This is so. What is not? What is not? What is terrible? Nothing. Everybody loved it. We loved it, and she was embarrassed. And she was embarrassed.
But you know what? It's like in my case, it's the other way around. And I remember as a teenager, my mom coming to my room and saying, "Why don't you go out and party with people?" Because I didn't feel like doing that. I was fine with my books in my room, with my music. I didn't want to party.
It depends on the character of a person. I mean, but